Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
A lot of us own businesses, especially after COVID. A lot of people opened up brand new businesses and kind of moved things along and changed things up. And sometimes you find yourself stuck. Like, I'm not moving forward. I'm kind of in this one place. Things are okay, but I know that I've got more out there, and I know I've got it in here to succeed, but I need to get it out of here. And sometimes you need some help with that. And sometimes you could use a business coach. And we have an excellent one with us today. Keith Weaver joins us. Hi, Keith. How are you?
Hello. Happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Great to have you here. And I also own a small business. And if I could do it again, I would have sought the help of somebody like you, because there's many times where I found myself I don't want to say stuck, but just kind of just circulating, but not going this way, not going that way, just kind of not in a bad place, but not in a great place either. Do you find that a lot of clients tell you that?
Yeah, kind of a typical scenario is a lot of times business owners get started and, they're using their savings, they're going to friends, they're using all the resources that they have available to grow their business, right? And so they grow their business, and then about 3 or 4 years into it, a lot of times they start to run out of those other resources, and they kind of start to plateau, right? Because they've done everything that they can, and they're just not sure how to take it to the next level. And some of that is lack of background. Some of it is getting complacent. We get to a comfortable zone. Hey, we're making enough money. We're paying bills. We're having a good life. And so we get complacent as well. So that can play a factor in it as well.
Yeah, complacent is a good word. It's almost a negative word, but sometimes it's really not.
Right.
It's just things are okay. I'm floating. I'm not sinking, but I'm not swimming. You're just kind of hanging there.
Well, and you start getting some assets, and the last thing you want to do is do something risky to lose them. So, you'd rather be a little more complacent and kind of reserved than maybe, more assertive or moving forward.
Sure. Yeah. Especially those times where you think, I probably should market my business, but that's going to be an investment. Or maybe I should hire somebody else, but there's going to be an investment there. And like, to your point, you don't want to rock the boat too much, but you've got it. You can. I go with the gut. The gut says, yeah, you can move that forward and you can succeed even more, but you got to take that next step. What's your advice for somebody like that when they're just, I don't want to say take a risk, but to take the step to move forward?
One of the things that we often do when people contact us is we kind of start with, a free consultation, but a part of that is we have them go through a business assessment. And there's a couple different assessments we use, but basically there's a lot of aha moments that come out of that, because they'll be like, I hadn't realized maybe areas that I hadn't focused on my business for a year or two, that I have kind of neglected. And so sometimes it's just eye-opening for them to realize, wow, okay, there maybe are some easy wins that I could do working on parts of my business. But then also, through those aha moments, they can start to see the bigger vision, what would be the next step? What would that look like? And how could I possibly achieve that when, maybe I didn't even think about it or wasn't sure I could achieve it.
When you do a business evaluation as weaverbusinesscoaching.com, what are some of the things that you look at?
So, for example, we have them do a self-assessment that looks at 10 different areas of the business. And so it's looking at sales, marketing, cash flow, what's their networks like, what's their leadership, what's the productivity like, what are their systems? Do they have systems in place or not? So we're kind of touching on different areas of the business because, we're all experts in something, right? And because of our background, we tend to levitate to that area of the business. And there's also areas that we tend to shy away from because maybe we're not as good at that or we don't have the experience in it. And so those kind of get pushed aside and maybe neglected. And so it's kind of an overview to see, where are some of the gaps that maybe aren't being filled.
So we already got a question, and I love it because we're resonating. That's a good thing. And you can always reach us at instantfeedbacksteve@gmail.com. Jim's in Santa Fe and says, I'd like to get more clients, and I know the secret to that is often referrals. But I find a lot of my current clients don't give me referrals, even though I have a great relationship with him. Do you have any advice?
So it's interesting. If you, I have a background in psychology. I love the psychology of business, the psychology of things. And one of the things that we find through the study of psychology is that there's about 20% of the people that no matter how brilliant and how wonderful you are, they just are not going to give you a referral because that's their personality. They just don't do it, right? Mm-hmm. There's another 20% that are, even if you mess up, even if you're not the greatest, if they like you, they're going to give you a referral because they're, that's their personality. They like to do for other people. And so it's that 60% in the middle, right, that are the fence sitters that you've got to win over to actually refer to you. And that takes being proactive to figure out how can you win them over. In other words, how can you get them to get off the fence and actually make that referral? And so one of the things that we have done with some clients is we come up with what we call a referral system, where we try to have them do a couple things, but one is to look at what we call kind of checkpoints, where you actually check in with a client and ask them how things are going. If you're a mechanic and you're doing, a 2-day job, you call them halfway through the first day or at the end of the first day, check in. Hey, we told you to expect it by 5. We're right on track with this. This is what we're doing. Any concerns? How do you feel things are going? When you do those check-ins and you get that feedback from them, if the feedback is good, if the client says, wow, I appreciate, no other mechanic has, given me that kind of feedback. No one else has checked in with me. I love it. That's a popular thing. Now you got them on your side. So now, then you can start looking at asking for a referral. Well, hey, would you know anybody else that would love that kind of check-in when they have their car in the mechanic? And so then you can start getting them off the fence and getting them to refer to you.
I love that. And that's a great reminder too, because especially if you have ongoing clients, monthly clients that stay with you, a lot of times, a lot of people don't check in with them because no news is good news, and you just don't want to hear if there's anything. And there's probably never going to be anything negative, but you just want to, you don't want to kick the hornet's nest. Everything's good. We're all good. But that's not the best thing either, especially if you want to get referrals. I want to share something. It just brought to my attention. That's how my brain works. We talk about stuff and all of a sudden, beep, something comes up. I got a text from the woman at my credit card processing company. It's a local firm, and she's kind of the assistant to the owner. And she texted me and she said, hey, can I call you to talk about something? It'll only take about 10 minutes. Can you talk on Monday or can you talk now? So I was like, yeah, call me now. No problem. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe they're going to raise the rates. Maybe there's an issue or whatever. Right. She was calling to talk about how happy or not I was with their service. And as she wove through these 5 questions or so, it came down to, would you be okay referring to others? And I said, of course, you guys are great. And I said, not contingent on this, but I would appreciate referrals too at the same time. But yeah, it was, I was fine with the phone call, but it was a very effective way of getting your attention and engaging you, and then setting you up, I guess, to remind you, hey, you're talking about, she was giving me a survey. Were you happy with the service? You've been with us 4 years. How do we compare to the 2 credit card processing companies you had before that? So yeah, just a different way of approaching referrals, which are so important.
Very true. And that's a great example. A lot of companies are doing things like that. And so it's finding, a system that works for your business, for your industry, but then implementing it and of course, staying on top of it.
Yeah. System is a great word. Really is. Who's a perfect client for you?
So we work with quite a variety of different sizes of businesses. So, it's not necessarily size, but a lot of the common issues that we see with clients that we work with is one, from a leadership or business owner standpoint, there's being overwhelmed and just lacking time management. So they need some really good time management stuff. Another is there's a lack of kind of defined strategy where kind of like you said, we get in and then we get complacent, and we're not sure how to take it to the next step, what the next goal should be, or the direction. So there's a lack of defined strategy. Another is, systems are a big thing, because, the example I use is, if you have a really fine-tuned, sports car, you buy it because it runs, it purrs, and it runs great, right? But if the tuning gets out, if the alignment's off, you're not going to get the kind of response out of that car that you want. It's not going to live up to its potential because it's not well tuned. And that's where systems come in, is understanding, our from our marketing to our sales, to our operations, to our follow-up, our fulfillment, is all of those things, are they fine-tuned so that they're running like that precision automobile? And so there's a lack of that a lot of times.
Do you find, and again, we're talking about systems, and I think it's so powerful that because a lot of small business owners are on autopilot, they're just moving forward.
Right.
Do you find that a lot of owners take on too much on themselves instead of delegating, and then that holds them back as well?
They do. And it's understandable, because when you start a business, you're the one-man show. You do everything, right?
Yep.
And so then when you bring other people on, one, it's hard from a trust standpoint to let go. Two, you've been the fix-it. You've been the answer to all the problems. If you start letting other people fix things and figure out the problems, you got to kind of redefine who you are and what your role is. That's uncomfortable for business owners, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to let things go and say, oh, someone else can figure this out better than I can, or, work on this because they have time or because they have the skills.
How about we talk about value? I think that a lot of times that goes through the business owner's mind, like, what do I charge? Am I charging enough? But I don't want to overcharge, but I don't want to undercharge. How do you set the value?
So there's a couple of different analyses that we kind of go through. One is sometimes we look, just at the industry. If it's a local healthcare agency, it might be looking at places around them and what they're charging, kind of be able to look and see what the comparison of what the services are being charged. And that can be a really helpful area, just, hey, we're much lower than our competitors. Why are we so low? We can raise our rates. That's part of the, just the expected across the board with the industry, right? But on a more in-depth level is looking at, okay, what is the value in our value proposition, right? Because if, kind of using a car analogy, are you selling a Hyundai or are you selling a Mercedes? You're going to charge different things based on what it is that you're selling. And so are you really selling it to the value that you're offering? Are you offering all the bells and whistles, or are you offering some streamlined, basic model kind of a thing? And a lot of times, because people want to be successful, they're offering the bells and whistles, they're offering everything they can and charging, the base model rate, because they're afraid to raise their rates.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, where it's really just finding the sweet spot. But a lot of times you don't want to charge too much, but if you charge too little, somebody's going to look at you and say, oh, well, they can't be good. Look at how cheap it is. They could be the best company in the world, but they're not charging enough. And just perception is the reality of everything. What about somebody who is considering changing careers or starting a business? What advice would you have? What about first thing that comes to mind? We talked at the very beginning about having enough capital sitting there and knowing that that's going to be enough to propel you until you get rolling. Any suggestions along those lines?
Just on a personal experience, I started my first business in my 20s, and then I've gone on to have 8 different other businesses. But one of the things that I think made the biggest difference in that, the ones that were unsuccessful and the ones that were successful, right, is one, my preparation, really understanding the market, really going in it with my eyes wide open, so to speak, right? The other is, as a 20-year-old, I didn't have my own network. And as a 30-year-old, 40-year-old, 50-year-old, I've had my own network where, I have attorneys that I can call on. I have CPAs that I can call on and ask questions. I have people that are not ongoing mentors, but are there to bounce things off of. And I think that made a huge difference in my own personal experience of starting businesses, and how easy, successful, even how much confidence I had in my ability to do it because of that outside network that I had of support.
That's a great point. It really is, and it takes time to groom that, but it doesn't mean you can't get it going.
Right.
Even if you start networking, you go to some network events, you meet people, you start that synergy with them, and then everybody's helping each other. It's pretty amazing. And just checking in with each other. We go back to the check-in,
Right.
people that I'm guilty of not doing that. I'm going to tell you right now, especially since COVID. Yeah, we were all checking in during COVID. COVID kind of ended, and all of the connections I had before that. And you know what, Keith, you're just bringing it up to my mind now, and now it's in my face. You're my mirror. It's right there. Great connections. Never
Right.
followed up because life goes on, and I haven't networked in a long time just because there's just not a lot of events still since COVID.
Right.
And all those people, I could be helping them, they could be helping me, just bouncing ideas off of each other. Yeah.
And going back to the value proposition, as you bounce ideas off of and you network like that, people often think it's the business that you get. Sometimes it's the value that you're giving to them in those offhanded conversations where it's not related necessarily to clients, but it's just them helping you. And, if somebody's helped me and showed me just how brilliant they are at accounting, of course, I'm going to be much more likely to refer to them because I've seen firsthand what they've done for me and the knowledge that they have and stuff. So,
and even if you didn't use them, we're always very careful about referring, but once you start that relationship and you see how other people in their world, the planets go around each other and they're like, wow, yeah, they do really good work. Hey, you know what? You can even say, I don't use them, but I've heard of them and they're actually really good.
Mhm.
That's fantastic to bring that point up. How about networking? Any suggestions for that? Again, I haven't been physically out there and really want to get back to it, but any ideas there?
Maybe one or two. One is there's so many networking opportunities out there. I get all kinds of offers for different networking type of companies or organizations and events and things. And one is, kind of like when you start a business, really understanding what it is you're looking for and, what they're offering, because some networking, it's not where your ideal, so to speak, network or even clients are. And so you need to tailor it, because your time is valuable, to the things where you're going to get the best ROI, the best bang for your buck kind of a thing.
Yeah.
The other thing that I see a lot is what I call kind of professional networkers, that they're out there, they're friendly, they're outgoing, they're making friends, but there's not any deep connections. There's not any real follow-up. It's more socializing, which is great. I have nothing against socializing, but from a business perspective, that's not going to get you where you go, right? And so, one of the things I often tell my clients is, okay, you're going to go to this networking event. How are you going to prepare? And what's one or two goals that you can go in with, Is it a goal of meeting 3 new people? Is it a goal of, having a more in-depth conversation with a particular type of person? But have a goal in place so that you're not just going in socializing.
Yeah, that's very true too. And everything's a goal. If you're planning that event to go, and there's cost involved more
Right.
times than not, and you got to make sure it's the right group for you, because it could be a yearly fee to be part of a group, and you also have to think of what their motivations are as well. I'm part of a industrial association. It's not even connected to what I do, in my business. However, there's great connections, and it's just the synergy. It's a nonprofit. They do charge a yearly fee. It's not, it's reasonable, but it's not, $20, but
Right.
for what you get for it in terms of, and I want to bring this point up too. Get involved with the group. because my favorite part of being with that group is they started asking me to volunteer at events. So I was one of the greeters. Now you might think, well, I don't know, why you want to do that? I'm there when you walk in.
Right.
It's like that was like one of the greatest things. And then once you made yourself available, they ask you again, hey, you want to, we're going to do an award ceremony. You want to be part of that? And we need some help over here, over there. I usually don't say no because it can be very beneficial. Have I gotten a lot of business from it? Not so much, but I haven't maximized it. I need to get back into it, because of COVID, actually.
But you probably have a lot of good connections that you can also call in an emergency to get information, or to get, hey, I need to find somebody like this. Do you know anybody like that, or whatever?
Yeah.
So
I think I have a fair amount, but Keith Weaver just reminded me that I need to catch up on that because I haven't checked in. Guilty as charged, for sure. What inspired you, Keith, to start a business that coaches businesses?
So a couple things. One is I have, like I said, have bought and had several different businesses. And years ago, I sold one of my businesses. And when I sold that, several people in kind of the industry and just that I knew called me up and said, hey, will you come and consult for us and help us do some of what you did, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I did some part-time consulting with them and just really fell in love with it, because I have a background in psychology. I have a background in business and law. And it was just a nice blend of all of those things and helping them really kind of, improve their business and get more out of their business. The other thing that happened at that same time was that business that I sold. When I started the business, a neighbor friend of mine started a business just within a couple of weeks, months of that. And so for about 6 years, we ran our businesses together and would pass on the street and kind of commiserate about, the life of an entrepreneur and how difficult it was or whatever. But when I sold my business for a huge profit, and within a couple months, he had a major injury, couldn't work his business, and had to sell it basically for inventory and parts and just, low ball offers, kind of a thing, to get rid of his business. And it really was an eye opener to me that, the value in the business is what you put into it, and can the business run without you, or are you the business, and those kind of things. And just really felt bad that in hindsight, man, there's probably things I could have done with this neighbor friend of mine to help him. So we didn't end up on those. I mean, I felt guilty almost at, selling my business because of what happened to him, and didn't want to see that happen to other people.
Interesting. Wow. That you had that passion and you wanted to help. You wanted to help your friend, neighbor. You just brought up a really good point. When the business is you, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Like, for example, let's say you're an attorney. If you probably couldn't sell your business because you are the business. Any thoughts on that?
So obviously, for, having a true asset, the more you cannot be the face of the business, you're not the business, the more of a true asset you have, because you can sell that down the road. But depending on industries, like you said, if you're a doctor, if you're a CPA, if you're an attorney, it's hard to not be the face of the business. And so there are steps that we work with clients on to help them kind of back away from that. But sometimes it's also, they have the business running to the place where rather than selling the business, they're actually bringing someone on that they can mentor for 2 or 3 years and then selling the business to them. And because of that 2-3 year mentorship, they become the new face of the business. And so it's more of a long-term transition than just up and, selling the business the next day, kind of a thing.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because if you're the face of the business, you have a number of clients. If you can start grooming that other person and they're dealing with the clients instead of, let's say, you be the face of the business. It's so funny. I walked into a local pub. I used to go there years ago, and it was called Two Morrows. It was two guys named Morrow, and I haven't been there in decades. My friend and I was like, let's go. It's been so forever. We walked in and there's 2 new guys running it. And we didn't even know, we didn't even care, met them. They were great. They were walking table to table. They're doing their job, but it didn't even matter. But back in the day, it was the Morrow brothers. And after a while, it just kind of dissipated and you didn't really care. You were happy with whatever product that they had. Yeah.
Hopefully it builds its own reputation, and that's what it stands on. You went because of the memories and the reputation that it had back then.
It's a super good point, because as I'm sitting there eating and I see a sign and a plaque on the wall that said 2 Morrows, I wonder what's going to happen, in a few years when word gets out that it's not those guys, it's 2 other guys running the business. And they were very nice and I wish them all the best, but I wonder if it's just, or people aren't going to care, it's not going to register to them. Tell everybody, if they want to get even an evaluation or they want to work with you, do you do a discovery call? How does that all work?
We do discovery calls, and they can go to our website. It's just weaverbusinesscoaching.com. There's some free resources on there. We have a business digest that we publish once a week that can go out to keep you up to date on business news and stuff. And you can also schedule a time with us from the website. That's
great. And excellent website, by the way, so many different resources and information, but at the same time, maybe next time we talk about those things, like you're offering something in terms of that digest, and that's just another way to keep people stay on their radar.
Right. Yeah.
Great thought. Yeah. Keith Weaver and weaverbusinesscoaching.com. Go there and check it out. If you're looking to move your business forward, even starting a business, or you just want to put new life into your business, definitely reach out to Keith. Great talking with you. I love the details and the information.
I appreciate it. And thank you for spending the time with me.
Thank you. And we'll catch up next time.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you can now listen live on the MyTuner Radio and online Radio Box apps for iOS, Android, and the Amazon App Store. Or check us out online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com or search Podcast Business News Network on onlineradiobox.com/US so you don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.